Great.
So you were talking about Drive-A-Tards earlier. Was that Local Cycle? Did I miss it? What happened? No?
We haven't hit Local Cycle
Oh,
yet.
okay.
We'll get there.
Damn it.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
We're going to play some Crimson Dragon now, which you are reviewing or did review?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Okay.
for IGN. Yep, 5.9 on our scale.
That's not amazing.
No, and I had my hopes really high for this. I've been on board actually since the beginning when it was the working title was Project Draco, and it was initially a Kinect
right.
game.
Yeah.
You know,
A Kinect game for 360.
That's right, yeah. And I've been on board with on-rail shooters before, you know, like Child of Eden a lot, like Rez a lot, like the original Panzer Dragoon, even Orta. And this is mostly, you know, that team. Yeah, so there's a daily login bonus, which we just have to skip by, just hit next. And some, you know, additional stuff. If you hit back. Yeah, I can
Close
drive
meld
for you.
or what? What are we
Yeah,
doing
there
here?
you go. Okay, cool. So we'll just jump into single player. So there's two forms of control or forms of difficulty, either casual or classic. I played on classic, tried casual for some of the harder stages. So what do you guys want to know? Like, do you want sort of the top down?
Let's just show this game off. You know,
Yeah,
people,
cool. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
they're making their purchasing decisions, trying to decide what launch games to get when they get their console on Friday. So
This is a download-only game, right?
correct.
That is, yeah.
20 bucks.
20 bucks.
Yep.
But you weren't that hot on it.
No, unfortunately. And the big reason, unfortunately, even though most of the team that worked on Panzer Dragoon, which if folks don't know that game, was a rail shooter from the
Classic.
mid-90s. Yeah, very classic.
Has an Xbox connection. Panzer Dragoon Orta.
That's right, yeah.
That was actually the last Panzer game.
Yes.
That was for the first Xbox.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Every time you say Xbox.
I know, it's listening to me
comes
now.
up.
I got to be careful.
Yeah.
It likes me a lot more than it likes Fran for some reason.
Good thing he's reviewing the system. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to skip this, but yeah, next gen just doesn't do this game a lot of favors, unfortunately. Visually, from a gameplay perspective, it's very repetitive. The presentation, unfortunately, is just really sort of deadpan and dull. You know, and that was really disappointing for me. And I was really looking forward to a lot of that stuff. They do have some cool ideas in here. There is sort of an RPG approach in that these dragons can be evolved and leveled over time. And you as a rider also level over time, which controls what dragons you could then unlock and purchase later on in the game. And that's really cool. I think all those ideas are great. But it's the repetitive action of playing through stages you've been through 4 or 5 times. Like, it's like getting on the same roller coaster like 4 or 5 times in a row. Eventually, you're going to get tired of that ride, no matter how much you loved it. So we're starting right here. It's got sort of traditional controls for this genre. You know, the left stick is moving the dragon back and forth. The right stick is moving the reticle so I can aim. And this is on rails. There are some free flight sections, but that is much later in the game, and there are bosses tied to most of those sections. One of the other things that I was really down on, unfortunately, is this really old idea that's in here. There are these timed missions where you have like 2 minutes to kill something, and if you don't kill it, it leaves. And those can be really, really frustrating. So yeah, we're just traveling through this area here. You lock on by hovering over something. You fire with the right trigger. Left trigger is to switch your skill. You have 2 skills to choose from. One is a standard sort of attack, and the second one is a different type. So you'll see the, you know, when I switch to my skill, the reticle changes, so that's a clear indicator. I like that. In previous games, or at least in older like on-rail shooters like Panzer Dragoon, the triggers work to change the camera view. Instead, you just kind of control that by moving the reticle, and I just took a bunch of damage there. So enjoy that.
Is it fair to say, Jose, that there's really nothing outside of there's nothing gained from this being on Xbox One as opposed to 360 other than 1080p and a smooth 60 frames?
Yeah, I would say, that's pretty much all that they gain. Like, a lot of the textures look really flat, or just like, there's some enemies, like, if you watch the video review, there's a shot of one boss and his eyeball opens, and it's just the worst looking eyeball you have ever seen.
Worst eyeball ever.
Yeah, which can be interpreted that way. I completely agree. Here's some dragons we're hunting for. The story is based around an infection, a mysterious infection, a government that, you know, there's sort of a government conspiracy, and them not telling you much about it or knowing its origins, that kind of deal. Yeah, I think, you know, the unfortunate story for this game will be, you know, as an Xbox One game, this didn't really impress me. I just wonder if on 360 with Kinect it would have been better. Like, I really enjoyed Child of Eden. Outside of all the J-pop, like, I really, really love that game.
Not a J-pop fan.
No, not. I thought Rez, going for the trance vibe, was a lot better. But I did love like that visual direction, and you saw, you know, it took advantage of what the 360 can do. Whereas this kind of struck me, and this is going to sound really insulting, and I'm sorry, but it kind of struck me as an early 360 game, like visually. Like it didn't do much with what it had, and I'm sure they wanted to do more, but you know, switching it to Xbox One again, I'm just like, guys, you know, what happened here?
I love that we're piling on achievements to my profile here.
Yeah, enjoy that.
So, the achievement notifications I've seen in all 3 games so far have been purple.
Blue.
Blue is it? Sorry, maybe I'm colorblind. Can you set that color? Is that a preference?
Yeah, there's about a dozen different colors you can pick, from the traditional Xbox green to Leah Jackson has pink.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
Fran Mirabella is communist gray.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, and then there's purple, red.
So this, you know, I played a couple levels of this game at an Xbox One event a few weeks ago, and I wasn't enamored with the gameplay, but I really liked the creature design. Like, this thing looks awesome.
Yeah, I think some of the dragons do look cooler, and as you evolve them over time, they get much better detail. Like the dragon I'm flying right now is just a standard fire dragon, but as you evolve him, like his wings are on fire, he starts getting all these little visual highlights that start to add up and, you know, make it look significantly better, I thought. But early on, and that's another thing, the dragons have different elements, right? Like there's wind, there's fire, I think there's a light version, if I remember right. Oh, I messed up. So this is kind of like whack-a-mole right here, because every time he goes in the lava, I can't hit him. So I have to sort of shoot at him when he peeks out.
You know, you mentioned that looked like a timed fight right there. You ran out of time and didn't kill him.
Yeah, and some of the fights there is no penalty for it. Others there is a very strict penalty for it. I just feel like the timed mission itself also, just this old idea from the arcade era,
right?
Which, you know, this series came from that, right? I mean, this sort of came from that kind of an experience, this genre. It's just
like,
kind of
I already
weird,
paid $500 for my console. Don't make me put quarters in.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, it just kind of surprises me that they stuck to that, and it's particularly nasty later on. Whereas, you know, you saw right there was no real penalty; it just got away. But then going into some of the repetitive stuff, there are levels that you can't access until you basically defeat a creature enough times to acquire a certain antibody from it. And the antibody that you acquire is something you need, because again, the whole story hinges on this infection idea. You need that antibody to enter the level, essentially. So yeah, you're replaying that stage until you kill that thing and the random drop occurs, which is just like, well, yeah, I don't know what was really going on there.
Well, we do have a copy of Crimson Dragon to give away, so you can find out for yourself.
Excellent.
Let's give it to Clive Cookson, who says, I was disappointed to hear it scored so low. If you were to improve Crimson Dragon in any way, what ideas would you put forward?
Well, you know, I'm not a developer, but I would definitely start with get rid of time missions. Like that idea, and that can, you know, is just a bygone era. Like, let that go. I feel like definitely, you know, work on some variety in the stages and the sort of endless repetition, the needless repetition that seems to happen a lot with this game. I think control-wise it's fine, although you will see sometimes I sort of lose track of the enemy, but I don't feel like that's, you know, sort of a bad thing. I kind of like the idea of a roller coaster ride where I'm trying to find where this thing is, and I don't feel frustrated by that at all, actually. I can understand, though, if some people are. That's where I'd start.
Timed encounter here too.
Yeah, here too. I don't think there's a penalty for this one either, but I guess we're going to find out. I know early on there isn't, but then later on there is, and it just becomes sort of a thing. Like there was one where this one was driving me nuts for a while. You have to fight two of those. They're sort of like dragon-looking snakes, like I was fighting earlier, the one that was popping out of the magma. But there are two at once, and you have to shoot them. But it's kind of like whack-a-mole, because again, every time they go in the water, they sort of escape you. And it's like, well, crap, how do I get him? And you have to wait and bide your time and, you know, place your shots well. Yeah, so this is kind of it. Sorry.
30 seconds. Well, Clive can try it out for himself.
Yeah, I think folks should try it out, and I think, you know, as long as you go in with the right expectations, it'll be fine. You know, I'm curious what the Kinect product would have been, you know, versus the Xbox One version that, you know, has shipped.
Well,
they haven't really said what happened at 361 either.
There are, we probably have some Japanese gamers that could actually tell us that, because a playable demo of the game, of the original Crimson Dragon for 360 Kinect
Okay.
went up on the Japanese marketplace for a little while.
Yeah, that's
remember
right.
that?
I remember that.
So
story.
yeah, I never got my
Yeah.
hands on it, but I'm sure there are
That's
folks
right.
out there that did get to try it out.
I think this is another cool
That's
monster.
cool.
Like,
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
it's got some cool monsters in it.
And some of the free flight sections involve huge bosses. When you're flying around them, you're like, wow, that thing is massive.
Oh, so it's not completely on rails?
No, there are some levels that will just give you full control. Those can be a bit frustrating though, because then they tack on like very specific objectives, like, hey, hit them in the weak spot. And they won't tell you what it is, which is fine, but if you're on a time mission, you're kind of pressed for time to figure out what that weak spot is. It turned out to be like 4 eyeballs it had around its...
I played that boss. That was annoying.
I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Ended so poorly for me.
Well, Jose, thanks for taking some time to show us Crimson Dragon
Absolutely,
today.
yeah, no problem.
We're going to switch over to Fighter Within now.
So this requires a little bit of setup. We've got a very small little studio space. We need to get this table out of here. This is the only gesture-driven Kinect game in the launch lineup. I mean, it is